I would request CA Hariram Agarwal ji, the Vice Chairman EIRC, to felicitate our speaker Asim Prakash. Please put your hands together once again for our speaker. Thank you, Hariram ji. Asim Prakash's professional journey showcases an impressive blend of academic prowess and practical expertise in the field of direct taxation. Graduating from St. Xavier's College, Calcutta with a commerce degree and attaining esteemed status of fellow chartered accountant, he has established himself as a prominent figure in this domain. At ALP & Associate, a reputable CA firm in Kolkata, Asim leads the direct taxation wing, leveraging his extensive knowledge and experience to provide expert guidance to his clients. He represents the clients before CIT appeals and income tax appellate tribunal. Beyond his firm, he is actively engaged with various forums as a regular speaker, sharing insights on diverse topics related to direct taxes. His role as a faculty member for CA students at ICAI highlights his commitment to nurturing future professions in the field. As a trainer for government departments, including the Income Tax Department, Asim contributes to the development of tax professionals, further cementing his reputation as a trusted authority in the industry. His involvement in the activities of the Direct Tax Committee of the ICAI endorses his dedication to advancing the profession through collaborative efforts and contributions to the publications. We all welcome you, Asim, once again, and the stage is yours. Please go ahead with your deliberation. Thank you very much.
Well, a very good evening to one and all. I appreciate your time and effort. We have been eagerly waiting for the semi-finals of India. Hope we'll qualify. For this particular evening, I have been allotted a very simple topic. Let me not exaggerate about the topic of the day, income from house property. Prima facie, there has not been any such change which should be of any concern or worry for us. Whatever was there in Erstwhile Act 1961, everything has been there in Income Tax Act 2025. But as the topic goes, verbatim reading of Income Tax Act 2025, I'll go through the sections, and whatever we will find that it needs further discussion, we will take it up. So annual value of the property of any land or buildings appertinent thereto owned by the SSE shall be taxable under the head income from house property. So when we talk about house property, let me discuss few fundamental questions, sir. Because whatever is there in house property, what we have been studying under Income Tax Act 1961, everything was same. This basic confusion is there for our clients where, there is a commercial property and the rent from that is coming, and whether that has to be taxed under the head house property or PGBP. So that is one fundamental question. I just thought to cover it because I had nothing much to speak as far as this topic is concerned, income from house property. But we'll go through the sections verbatim for sure. So I just thought to take this up before starting. What is your take? House property. Very good, sir. So I will take you through a section right away. Unfortunately, that section does not fall within house property, but it falls under PGBP, but is related to house property. Yeah, 4. I was waiting for that. So it says that any income from letting out of a residential house or a part of it by the owner shall not be included in income under the head PGBP and should be offered only under head income from house property. So this was a specific provision which was brought through, I guess, Finance Act 2025, if I'm not wrong, or 24, which says that any income from letting out of a residential house or part of it. So what do you think? What would be the intent of the law to bring out this particular amendment, sir? So, if we can read between the line and say that the intent of the legislation is to tax the rental income from the residential house under income from house property, that is for sure. One thing ticked off. Does it talk about commercial property? Do we have the liberty to offer our income from commercial property as PGBP or rental head under house property? Depends on circumstances. So facts and circumstances are very important when we talk about the taxation of rental income under different heads, whether it should be categorized as PGBP or house property. Why I've started on this note? Because this is a common question for all of us. Every time we plan, and trust me one thing, prima facie again it looks like that we all try our best, make an earnest attempt to categorize it under PGBP. I do not know why we are so biased, but somehow we feel that, it is always advisable and monetary sensible and lucrative to offer the rental income under PGBP. That is a kind of, by default setting we have. But sir, trust me, I had done a project analysis for 30 years for one of the properties of my clients, and I just wanted to categorize it because I had the option to, arrange, if I may say so, or plan it in a way that it can be taxed. It could have been taxed under PGBP as well as house property, and trust me, income under the house property was much more lucrative. Why I will say so? Because standard deduction of 30% plays a very crucial role. What you will get in offering under income from house income under PGBP is that you will get the depreciation. So initially it will look lucrative, but later on, because of its depreciation getting lower and lower over a period of time, it will have, if you'll see the present value of money, you will always find income from house property as more lucrative. Now coming to the next point, why I'm endorsing this. Again, it depends. It depends on the numbers, but that was my prima facie conclusion, which I made. That sale of property is also an important factor while computing, while evaluating these projects. So the moment you offer your income under PGBP, your asset cost has been wiped off. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So that cost of acquisition is also done away with. So ultimately, you will at the time of, because when we calculate PV, and if we all can recollect what we studied during MAFA classes, because that was the last time many of us might have calculated the project cost, whether it is lucrative or not. So exit is also very important for a project. And if we calculate the exit, there also you will see that under PGBP, since your cost of acquisition has been completely eroded, so your tax will be higher. But under the head house property, it is not so. It remains intact. So that was my comment on that. Another interesting thing, as sir had pointed out, that what can be the facts and circumstances which can enable the SSC to offer it under PGBP? Because we are discussing and we never know. Because to compare A and B, we should have the entire picture of A and B. Correct, sir? So what are the circumstances which will enable the SSC to offer the rental income under PGBP? So let me start with, because if it gets litigated, the first thing which comes in the scrutiny starts and when it is before the learned authorities, they will say that what was the purpose of your business? What was the object of your entity? So the story starts from the object and incorporation, that because earlier the company used to have the master object. But now that is not the case. Now things are different. So when master object used to get drafted, then everything under the sun was the object. Correct me if I'm wrong. I can see so many senior faces, even experienced with more than my age. So what I'm submitting is that in such cases, first thing we have to ensure is that the object of the entity has to be in the business of renting of the property. Then only you can prove the intent of the business. That yes, look, this was my object, this was object when it was incorporated and I'm doing the same business. Okay, taken. I'm giving an example because this is quite rampant these days. Warehousing industry. You will find this industry quite, this has been the buzz right now, that how it should be taxed. And I just want to take a feel of this August gathering, that according to you, what should be the taxation of warehousing industry, sir? Rental income from warehouse. So can we say that we have a divided opinion, is it? Or unanimous? Correct, sir. Now that is the point what I was looking for. So warehouse, prima facie, again it looks like that it's a business. Because if someone is into warehousing, you feel that that is his business. But it is not the case. If I have a structure, again we have to understand, because if you'll see the opening statement of section 21, if I'm not wrong, that was what we were studying. So it says that warehouse, the structure is there, and I do not have any role in that structure. I had built a structure along with land, and the name of the structure was warehouse. Name of the structure was warehouse, and I've given it on rent. Now tell me, sir, what should be the taxation? Oh my God, so quickly you changed. That is, so that's why we keep on saying facts and circumstances. Whenever we present ourselves before the authorities, facts and circumstances will keep changing the law and the interpretation of the law. So there cannot be a blanket interpretation for any section, sir. So in this example, land with structure. The name of the structure is warehouse. I have given it on rent to Amazon. Amazon has strictly, specifically, categorically told, sir, we appreciate your property and your relation with us. It was good. We will pay your rent on time. You can pay a visit whenever you like. We will ensure that your property should be taken care of, would be taken care of, but please do not visit the property. At your own will. If you feel like once or twice, it is fine, but we do not want any further assistance from you. Do you have any role to play in that, sir? Because right now you will see that even the maintenance, because there was a client where Tata was one of the parties who took the property on rent, they did not want any intervention from the client. Yes, sir, we'll take care of everything. Please do not come, we will see. If you feel like at all that your property is being used in the wrong manner, you can always pay a visit by giving a 24-hour notice. Otherwise, we are good. Now, if this agreement is drafted with such strict words, and even if your company has the object of renting out, do you think you can categorize this transaction as PGBP? Do you think, sir? No. That was the main point. I wanted someone to say this. I wanted someone to say this strongly, that it depends on the use of the property. It is not so. It is not so. Let's forget the residential part, because the story of the residential property given on rent has been ended by that specific amendment, that any rental income. Now, I'm just, by my stretch of imagination, I am saying that I had a flat in Baliganj. I have a flat in Baliganj. In that flat, I have opened a sari ka showroom. As per KMC records, it is a residential flat. Sir, in KMC, we understand, we all are aware, we have a category of property, commercial, residential, right? And we are also aware that in residential properties also businesses are being conducted. ठीक है, ये तो practical है. I'm not saying anything out of the world. So in that flat, साड़ी का business is going on. Boutiques तो sir, it is rampant everywhere. Boutique है. According to you, it is a residential flat, and the person who, my tenant is running a boutique. What should be the taxation? Sir. What is the nerve of the audience? What do you think? What is the nerve of the audience, sir? Strictly house property. Undoubtedly. Do you agree with this? I'm not saying this, sir. First of all, before entering into a house property, I took you to PGBP. What was the intent? Because house property, I had nothing much to offer, frankly speaking. Because there is nothing much. As far as the, Income Tax Act 1961 and Income Tax Act 2025 is concerned. But this was a gray area. So I just thought to cover it. And trust me, I'll not even take my 2 hours. Even I am running late for the cricket. On that note, on a lighter note, what I'm submitting is that the very fact, the purpose for which the property is being used is irrelevant. The concept is whether the property is residential or commercial. Now, this is a question of law. And I or someone out of the blue cannot say that this is a commercial property. It has to be backed through corroborative evidence. And what are the evidences which can prove that whether a property is commercial or residential, sir? Trade license is not a document which can prove the residential or commercial status. Trade license तो सर कहीं भी निकलता. Trade license तो सर अभी जो बड़ा बाजार में वो लगा रहे हैं उनका भी निकल रहा है. मतलब with all due respect. Tax receipt. KMC tax receipt. I'm just taking the example of KMC because we can relate to that. We can relate to that. That's why I'm saying this. So, yes, sir. That is what I'm saying, sir. Issuance of trade license is not a conclusive evidence of a property, whether it is a residential or commercial. Even if you see the trade license document, it is written there, a rider is there, that it can be cancelled at any given point of time if anything is found to be false. So issuance of trade license is not a conclusive evidence or document to prove whether the property is residential or commercial. What has to be seen is, we do the mutation, after that KMC property tax has to be paid. In that property tax, residential and commercial categorization is done. So now you see, now you have opened a Pandora box. Because now we are talking about the character of a property, whether it is residential or commercial. So only one document or trade license out of the blue cannot prove that character. So we have to prove it through the deed itself, the mother deed, what was the nature of the use, how it was being used, what you have written in the mother deed. Those things also play an important role. Because in mother deed also we write residential house. We do write, sir. So what looks simple, it's not that simple. We will have to prove it. If you want to deviate from the PGBP head, or if you want to deviate from house property head, whatever it may be, there has to be conclusive evidences. This is my sole submission. So what we were discussing is that here is a structure, land with building, so-called warehouse, and sir has pointed out, since Tata is using or Amazon is using that particular structure for its own business, since they are doing business, it should also be categorized as my business. That logic will fail. Because you have a relationship with your property in a different capacity. They have the relationship with their property in a different capacity. Yes, sir. So, in that case, the end use of the property by the tenant is irrelevant. We will have to check our own. Now, sir, how can it be categorized as PGBP? We talked so much, कि HP होगा, structure is there. How can it be categorized? Under what circumstances? Yes, sir. Since this is a warehouse, can we take Can we take this privilege that it is commercial because even warehouses have got star ratings? Do you know? Just like 5-star hotels, warehouses also get these stars, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star. This concept is there in warehouse. So, this particular fact has been established that a warehouse is a commercial property. The moment it is a commercial property, now the SSE has the liberty to choose house property. When I say liberty, it should sound like depends on facts and circumstances. So again, the way draft agreement is drafted. So, agreement is there, property is there. Now we are discussing if we want to categorize it as PGBP, there has to be a cluster of services which should give the impression that okay fine, इनको सिर्फ वहाँ पे rent नहीं खाना है. It is their business to get into the warehouse industry, and they also maintain warehouse. They take care of the warehouse, care, maintenance, security, water, fire. Lots of other ancillary services are there which you will provide in the capacity of landlord. And you can say that the prima facie objective is to give the property on rent for sure. But you see, if I will not provide these services, the person concerned will not take the property on rent. So this is my USP and it is my business. I am enabling the person to take the property on rent and run it. Sir, Calcutta में ये concept नहीं है. But if you'll go to Bangalore and Bombay, we have concept of shared workspace. Co-work. Calcutta है? अब तो बढ़िया है. Co-work is there, then it's good. So, the concept is like, you can take a table on rent. You can take a conference room on rent, take 10 chairs on rent, and you can work there. What do you think? In this co-working space, that person is giving you the place on rent, or it should be categorized as PGBP? कितना जल्दी answer आ गया, sir? What makes you say that answer? You can understand the difference between the agreement, because you know that even if I will not get 1 bottle of water, I can go and report it to the person concerned at the reception. पानी खत्म हो गया. Correct है ना? And it is his or her duty to replenish it, to refill it, right? So this is the cluster of service I'm talking about. They are not giving you employees, or they are not working on your behalf. They are giving you ample space, whatever you have asked for. Apart from that, whatever ancillary services you are looking for, canteen services, food services, that they ensure AC proper hai, drainage proper hai, washroom badhiya hai. Since this is a cluster of service what they are providing, that's why immediately you say that, sir, this is not a case of rental income, house property, but a case of profit and gains from business and profession. And in the similar line, we will have to draft our agreement if we want our income to be categorized as PGBP and not house property. Otherwise, sir, again for the department, they generally have this tendency to push the income to house property. Or unfortunately, it is unfortunately I'm saying, it is our approach कि department कुछ बोल रहा है तो गलत ही बोल रहा होगा. Let us understand that we have not evaluated the scenarios, and by default, since department is taking a stand कि whatever income, rental income sort of thing is there, you try to categorize it as house property. I will not categorize it as house property. I will categorize it as PGBP because I will book all other expenses. Driver expense, car expense, director remuneration. Sir, यही होता है, मतलब, since we are discussing it. Correct. And everything is related to business. And we get this concept कि because it is related to business, it should be allowed. Correct, sir? That is the sole criteria. And we end up going to that to create that mess that even if that expenses are not required, you are paying your director remuneration and your director is getting into HNI, highest level of 41%, and you are not bothered because you want to fight with the department कि नहीं, उसने HP बोला तो मैं HP में कैसे agree करूँ, मैं तो PGBP में ले जाऊँगा. Arey, you have to see the entire picture, right? Ultimately, if you are trying to book director remuneration and trying to bring down whatever planning is there in your mind, it is going to have a repercussion on other files, right? So we'll have to look at the picture in a 360 degree and then decide whether it is beneficial or not. And trust me, I have done this 30-year project. HP is a much better head to offer than PGBP. Because 30% straight deduction, flat deduction, without any mess, without any question. Department कोई दिमाग ही नहीं लगाता if it is a case of rental income, because you are taking away all the points of bones of contention. Now recently again, I'm just giving you a few live examples, sir, what happened. With one of the clients, what happened that leasehold land was there. So when they took the land, it had very nominal value from the government. What they did was, interestingly, they created a structure. Now we have to understand the concept of separate entity. Is very important. We cannot, we generally talk about that corporate wheel, lift the corporate wheel. It looks like that lifting the corporate wheel, whether generally does it happen under Income Tax Act, lifting the corporate wheel? Not on regular basis. But with the advent of GAR and the way GAR provisions are being invoked, it is not a far-fetched also thing. So, land was being owned by the company, entity, and that company was not having any source of income. The directors wanted to create a structure, rather a bungalow, on that piece of land, and they wanted to stay there. And this entire transaction almost took 5-6 years. After that, they thought that let's construct a bungalow here. And by then, the price of the land shot. So now there are generally the perception, and what we, and I'm sure you also prefer, is that if it is about house property or if it is about residential house, we always suggest ki forget about the planning thing, you keep the whole structure in personal name. That is a thumb rule, sir, we suggest. And I'm sure we all go by that. Now this gentleman has already done his part. He has taken the land in the company's books. Unfortunately, company was not generating any income. He offered that he will take the home loan in his own name, because he had sufficient income. Bank happily gave it. He started the construction in his own name. Then first of all, I mean just prior to that, he approached us and said, ki, this is a scenario, what should be done? The prima facie thumb rule is that you should transfer the land to your own name. Sir, what are you talking about? The land which had costed almost 1 to 2 CR is costing now almost 15 to 16 CR. And when I say costing it, it should sound to you like stamp duty. So 15 CR, 8%, right, sir? Stamp duty, capital gain, so lots of things are there. So that proposal was done away with, because again you have to compare. And compare what? That is what I'm going to discuss, how it has to be compared. Because this is the first thing you will say, ki you transfer the land, pay the advance, pay the capital gain tax and pay the stamp duty, because itna lamba tension kaun lega? But that is a huge chunk of money we are discussing, sir. 15 CR में 2 CR का cost भी हटा दोगे, 13 CR पे 12.5%, and again 8%, almost 20%. Almost 20%. That's a huge cost. So, sir, let's stick to it. This is a lease, we should go for sublease. That is doable. If you will see, now the question comes, this person has created this structure. Who is the owner of the structure? Director. What will happen? Now we have got different scenarios, because this is a kind of thoda tricky arrangement. Land is owned by the company, structure is owned by the SSE, individual. What will happen? What should be in the company's books? We suggested that rent is sufficient. If they get the rent, it should serve the purpose. Again, what should be the rent? Because it was purchased at 2 CR, right now it is 15 CR. If we go by the standard rent or market rent Things may look different. As per thumb rule, sir, in India, I would just like to know from the August gathering, what is the average return from a property? 3 to 5, sir, 3 to 5. 4 to 5 तो अपर हो गया. आप 2 करोड़ के फ्लैट का कितना रेंट उठता है सर? अभी क्या समझ में आ जाएगा? गिव मी अ नंबर. 2 करोड़ के फ्लैट का क्या रेंट निकलता है? 60,000? करेक्ट मी इफ आई एम रॉन्ग. 70,000? 8.5 लाख? कितना परसेंट हुआ सर? नहीं होता इससे ज्यादा. Somewhere 3 to 5%. 6% तो it is beating. You are getting a ROI deal. 7% तो ROI deal होता है सर. 7 and 8 तो ROI deal में देते हैं. तो 3 to 5. And 3 to 5, I'm just trying to give the justification that property was purchased at 2 CR. Giving an annual yield of 3 to 5% will come to 6 to 10 lakhs. If the person books the rental income of 6 to 10 lakhs, that is 50 to 70,000 in his book, it should be decent to justify the yield. 15 करोड़ का तो मैटर आया नहीं सर, क्योंकि स्टैम्प ड्यूटी कहीं पे दिख नहीं रहा है. तो company has ended up paying tax on this rental income. And I will strongly say, कि sir, this is my land. I will offer it under house property straight away. 30%. Best scenario? I don't, because there is no other source of income. Director is already in the highest slab. There is no point in paying the director remuneration to the director, again taxing it there. There is no point. Pay the rent, get the standard deduction. Now what has to be compared? If we continue with this and 5% increment every 2 years, this rental income and the taxes, whatever I'm paying. So I have to compare the outgoing tax for next 30 years on this arrangement with my current outgoing of capital gain tax and stamp duty. According to your fine judgment and wisdom, what do you think? What is more suggested, sir? Paying capital gain and stamp duty on day 1? So that is how things have to be planned. Whatever looks prima facie very lucrative, ऐसे ही होता है, सब ऐसे ही करते हैं, ऐसा नहीं होता है, sir. We are all financial professionals. We have to make the projects. Let the numbers talk before us. Why should we be talking? Because we have this concept that everything under house property is wrong, it cannot happen. It doesn't work like that. Prepare a detailed project report, get the numbers, compare it, and then conclude whether what is good for the client. On that note, sir, so these were few food for thoughts. Apart from that, we'll start with the verbatim reading. Acha, one more thing. It just came to my notice when I was reading it. Sir, if you take a property on loan, what is the timeline to finish the construction of the property? This is what I was expecting. Unfortunately, it has been changed to 5 years. The time period has been extended to 5 years. No, sir, 2-3 साल पहले हुआ था मेरे ख्याल से. Even I was going through it, then I also realized, अच्छा ये 5 साल हो गया. Did you get my question, what I'm saying? I am saying that I took a loan on a property. Now I have a timeline to construct that property. I'm not talking about 54. Let me tell you. Generally we get confused. जैसे timeline आता है. 2 years, 1 year, 3 year. Loan. 24B. 24B. Loan. 5 years. So if you have invested in a project, some dream project, which is going to give you the handover maybe after 7 years, unfortunately you are not eligible for the interest. Correct, sir? We will cover that since we are doing verbatim. Can I just make it a bit? Determination of annual value. Nothing much is there. Acha, another concept which I just wanted to discuss. Because generally, I mean, we have been studying this since our CPT times and even before then, that concept of vacancy. We are all through with this concept of vacancy, sir? What should be the taxation of the house property in case of vacancy? Yes, sir? I had a property let out for a certain period of year and then it was vacant. No, let out property. Vacant, I'm saying, vacant. Acha, we have a divided opinion for this also. Yes, sir, please discuss. Let's discuss. What should be the taxation, sir? Already I have 2 house properties. This was the 3rd one. Already I had 3 house properties. Yeah, this is what I'm trying to say, sir. Ki it looks like we have been listening around, it is, but things are different. Actual rent received. We have to show the intent that I tried my best. I put the advertisement on Dharamtalla Square of my property, but it could not be let out. Then what? Do you think even in case of vacancy, the entire standard rent has to be offered as annual value? Sir? Ma'am? Yes, sir? Yes, sir. So we have to read between the lines that there are certain concepts which we have built over the year. That ये ऐसे ही होता है. ये ऐसे ही होता है. But when you go through the act sections, things are a bit different sometimes. Sir, in Calcutta right now real estate is thriving. What will happen in the case of real estate industry who is a builder and he has got flats which are unsold? What would be the taxation? So the cutoff date is date of completion, CC. Once you receive CC, 2 years from that time, you will be given time to sell it. If you are not able to sell it off, it is kind of lying in your inventory. Then the concept of deemed let out will continue and the builder will have to pay tax on those unsold properties. I mean, this is the heights of taxation, that the builder who is not able to sell the flats, he will have to pay tax on deemed rent of unsold flat. Post CC. Sir, ultimately, if you see the economy wise, that I am a builder, I have got unsold flats, my flat, I am not able to sell my flats. On the top of that, I am being asked that you pay deemed rent. So sometimes, sometimes we get this feeling that we try to, curb the gap, plug the loopholes, but there are ways and means where, it is hurting the economy and sentiments that it could have been done in a different way, especially for certain industries. So on that note, let's read section 21. For the purposes of section 20, the annual value of any property shall be deemed to be the higher of the following, the sum for which the property, if the property or any part of it is let and was vacant for the whole or any part of the tax year, and owing to such vacancy, the actual rent received or receivable by the owner in respect thereof is less than the sum referred, the annual value of such property shall be deemed to be the amount so received. Sir, can you go through 21.2? Section 21.2. Vacancy just now we talked about. This is what is written in the section as well. Sir, unfortunately, I could not get time to prepare any PowerPoint presentation, so I am showing you the actual act itself, so that I also cannot afford to make any mistake. The annual value of the property shall be reduced by the taxes, fine. The rent which cannot be realized by the owner shall not be included in company rental subject to rules as may be made. So it says that there is a concept of arrear rent also, which we will see. Basically, if rent is arrear, it is fine. You are not paying in this year. Whenever you receive it, you have to pay it in that year. So tax concept is very clear on that part. Clause 5, where a property is held as stock in trade and is not let wholly or partly at any time during the tax year, the annual value of such property or part thereof shall be nil for 2 years from the end of financial year in which the CC is obtained from the competent authority. Just now we discussed it. Section 6 talks about self-occupied property. Section 7 talks about two self-occupied properties shall not apply if the house or is actually let during any time of the year if the owner derives any other benefit from it. Deductions from income from house property, 30% is there where the property has been acquired, constructed. Acha, we have a lot of confusion in this new regime and old regime about the interest thing. Sir, in case of self-occupied property, what is the maximum interest which can be availed? Under which regime? Again, it changes the answer, right? Old regime. And what happens in the new regime? What happens in the new regime? 0. Now, how will, if I say that if the property is let out, what would be the interest allowability threshold? I'm looking for something different. So we have a divided opinion in this also. My question to the August gathering is that interest on loan for a property which has been let out, how much will be allowed? Maximum actual amount paid, right? Sir, the concept is like, I am having a property from which I am getting annual rent of almost 20 lakhs and I am paying interest on loan related to that property of 15 lakhs or let's say 10 lakhs. So 20 lakh, 30% gone, 14 lakh remaining. What will happen to this 10 lakh? Will it be allowed or not, sir? Fully allowed, sir. Now, my interest on loan is 16 lakhs. Interest on loan is 16 lakhs. 20 lakh annual value, 30% gone. I am left with 14 lakhs. What is my interest amount? 16 lakhs. What should be allowed? What should be allowed? Full. Now, whatever I am left with is 2 lakhs. How will this be treated under new regime and old regime? Pardon, sir? Anybody has a different opinion? Sir, is my question clear to the people at the back? My question is, I was having a let out property, my rental income is 20 lakhs, interest on loan is 16 lakhs. Question is, what is the allowable interest amount? Sir said 16 lakhs. Old regime. And new regime? 14. 14. No carry forward, sir. Sir is trying to say, sir, please, sir. In new regime? Sir, we are clear 20 minus 30, 14. You are remaining with 16. 14, you had your rental income, interest is 16. So income from house property is already 0. Now we are talking about this additional 2 lakhs. If we have fourth property, if we have, then we can again up to 2 lakhs. Is there any limit, or it is beyond limit? Within the head? There is no limit. So what I'm trying to say is, sir, that 2 lakhs in new head, there is no set off from other head. In old regime, to the extent of 2 lakhs, allowed to be set off. In new regime, SOP, no interest. Old regime, 2 lakh. Sir, when we talk about losses, there are multiple factors which have to be understood. One is self-occupied, let out, old regime, new regime. In चारों factor को overall 360 degree में देख करके you will have to take the final call. So again, when we do the personal filings, straight away we have this opinion that go for new regime. In case of salaried class employees, वो बेचारा को benefit मिला है, every time he can change. But who will take the pain to compute it under new regime and old regime? Correct? So let's do this, because ultimately it is going to benefit someone. Acha sir, there is another thing where takeover of loan is also a concept. What is this concept of takeover of loan? So I had purchased a property worth 2 CR where I had made a down payment of 30 lakhs and 1.7 I took loan from SBI. After 2 years, I realized that Yes Bank is giving me a better rate, which is not going to happen ever, but anyhow, for this example. So I went to Yes Bank and say that you take over this loan for me. Yes Bank has taken over that loan, 1.7. He has paid. Now, to claim the interest on this 1.7 given by Yes Bank, the application of the amount is very important, sir. It cannot happen that you take the loan and get it into your own account somehow. I don't know how you're going to do that. And you settle it differently through the bank, SBI. Generally, it doesn't happen in that manner because Yes Bank will directly pay to SBI. But if somehow this does not happen and you try to misappropriate the fund, in that case, you will not be eligible for interest. It does not allow, sir. That is what I'm saying. You're trying, sir, in IDFC also it was never allowed for Haryana government. We are talking about allowance and disallowance. It was never allowed, but that is what we call scams. So I'm saying that if the end use of the fund, the application of the fund is not done in the desired way, that is for the repayment of the loan, and it should be used for this purchase of new property, whatever you have done, only then the interest will be allowed. Sir, here it says, subclause 4, the certificate referred to in subsection 2 shall specify the amount of interest payable, on any new loan, where subsequent to the capital borrowed, the SSC has taken any such loan for repayment of whole or any part of such capital. Arrears of rent and unrealized rent received subsequently. The amount of arrear of rent received by an SSC from a tenant or the unrealized rent realized subsequently from a tenant shall be deemed to be the income from house property in respect of the tax year in which such rent is received or realized, that we have already discussed. And on this rent also, 30% standard deduction has to be allowed. Very important concept. Can I have a glass of water? Property owned by co-owners. Sir, interesting concept. We all buy house properties in the name of husband and wife. And by default, we feel that दोनों का नाम है, wife also gets a nice sleep, मेरा नाम आ गया है property में, कोई tension नहीं है. I am 50% owner. Sounds like that. Practically and for all legal purposes, it may not be so. When we talk about the ownership, which is the document we are referring to, deed of conveyance. Unfortunately or fortunately, we never mention the share of the property in the conveyance deed. Have you seen any conveyance deed where the share has been mentioned? Deemed रहता है सर, सर वही तो silent रखना है. हाँ, sir, all respect for those deeds, sir, and those parties. Otherwise, most of the time you will see that it is kept silent. अभी सर जो बन रहा है उसमें उन्होंने वहां पे डालना शुरू किया है. I am coming to that, sir. That's why I have raised this question. That in the deed it is not mentioned. I'll just come to that, sir. I'll just come to that. In the deed it is not mentioned. Then there is a person in the registry office who will do the registry for you for the deed. वो वहाँ पे सर एक query बोल के document होता है, वो generate करता है. And the person who is buying and selling, they are not bothered also what he is doing. In that query, you will have to give the percentage corresponding who is owning, who is selling to whom. There, unfortunately, nobody is taking the pain to see whatever he is doing. You are happy that you have got the title of the property and the key of the property. नाम आ गया है property में, everyone is happy. Nobody is looking at the query report. Why this query is important, sir? Unfortunately, this is the only data which will prove the ownership, co-ownership percentage. How the story goes. When we make the payment to the seller, and if you intend to hold 50% in the property, you should ensure that 50% of the consideration amount should go from your own bank account, or whatever percentage you feel like. If 3 brothers are buying the property, if you have to transfer the money from each other's account to anyone to balance it, money is in person's A's account, not in C's account, you do it through gift deed among the brothers. But when you are paying as the buyer to the seller, and there is a specific percentage which will be owned by these 3 individuals, you have to ensure that 33.33% of the consideration amount should be paid by person A to the seller, B to the seller, and C to the seller. This refined process is very much important, sir. Now, story does not end here. Payment is the first part. When we go for this query, then also it plays an important role. And there also you make sure that the ratio in which the payment has been made, similar ratio is mentioned in the query report, because there is something called statement of financial transaction which will be filed by the honorable registrar, and there he will create a mess. I mean, sir, anyhow when we give the correct data, तब तो गलत भरता है. आप तो गलत दे रहे हो. So that is one thing which we have to ensure. This is going to play an important role again. We have something called Form 26 QB. Form 26 QB, sir. So there are several check and balances mechanism which will keep proving the ownership. The first mechanism is the bank payout. Second mechanism is 26 QB. If you fail to commensurate, if you fail to fall in the same line as of whatever bank payout has been done from your account, and if your 26 QB says a different story, don't you think you are in soup? Sir? Because it has to be planned. If you have planned that 50% or 30% money has to go from this account, all your documents should be in the same line. Your bank payouts, your 26 QB, your query report, and then the story starts of house property. Because every year you will have to show the co-owner. You can't keep changing. इस बार husband का income ज़्यादा हो गया तो co-ownership change कर दो. Typical practice, right? It is not a kind of T20 game. You feel like doing it, again you change it. This cannot happen. Because if you're putting things on record in ITR, you cannot afford to take it back. So that's why it is very important that when you file this co-ownership details in your ITR, go and study the history of the property, see the payouts, find the ownership, see 26QB, and then only you decide the property co-ownership, and you file your return in the same line. If at all you wish to change the co-ownership, abhi 1% lag raha hai sir gift deed mein. You get it changed. Gift the property. 10%, 20%, whatever you want to gift, you gift it. 1% stamp duty. Very much bearable. But do not deviate. Again, story does not end here. House property is just the middle part, interval. Once you sell the property, again the entire thing will come in the picture. Ki sir, property has been sold. Who is going to receive the consideration now? And who is going to offer how much tax? There you will see wife does not have any income, kam se kam 4 lakh ka slab to consume kar le. These things come in our mind, right? You have already telling a story to the department for last so many years through your house property head that this is the co-ownership. You cannot change it overnight just because some slab is not there. You want to avail an extra slab of 4%. Basically, you're trying to save 50,000, right, sir? 12.5% if I say so on 4 lakhs. You're trying to save 50,000. But things are already freezed in the documents of the return in the income tax department. You have been, query is there, SFT filing is there, your ITR in the name of house property is there where you have been mentioning co-ownership every year. So lots of records are there. If you are not in line while filing your capital gain, then again you are in mess. So please make sure that right from the purchasing of the property to the sale of the property, entire ownership remains intact. Sir, देखिए आप जितनी गंदगी क्रिएट करोगे उतना एक्सप्लेन करना आपको मुश्किल होगा. सर आपको जो करना होगा सब कुछ एक जैसा ही करना होगा. Everything has to fall in line. You cannot afford to deviate. Generally this is human tendency कि सर हो गया अब क्या करें. अब हो गया तो फिर you cannot do anything about it. But you stick to the facts. And you cannot say, look, problem is that you can do the mistake once. But if you'll keep on changing the percentage, then that is an issue. And that is where the concept of mens rea trigger, that it is not a mistake. Mens rea. You intended to do this. Sir, deemed ownership, individual buying the property without consideration to the spouse. First is any individual who transfers without adequate consideration any property to the spouse. The holder of an impartible state, member of cooperative society, 12-year ka lease agreement is there. So those things are there, which has to be, if those transactions trigger, then it is a case of deemed ownership. On that note, Acha, one more thing, since we are discussing the house property thing, so there was a section, I guess 282, if I'm not wrong, in Income Tax Act, which says that if there is any assessment going on or there is an outstanding demand in income tax portal, and if you sell a property, then the deed, the transfer will be is revocable, and department can stand against it and get the property back. You are getting what I'm trying to say? The concept is that I am a SSC, I'm an SSC, I have a demand of 100 crores in income tax portal, God forbid, it should never happen. Person X has a demand of 100 crores, and person X is also having a property worth 80 crores. And if that person X is selling the property worth 80 crores without informing the department to person Y, and if department, whenever it will come for recovery, if they come to know that at the time of the sale of the property, the demand was there, and despite that he has sold it without the consent of the AO, then the entire transaction will be deemed to be invalid, quashed. It will not stand in the court of law. So it is better you take a NOC, take the portal ka screenshot, that there is no existing demand. Sir, on that note, house is open for questions. Thanks for being such a lovely audience. Demand, sir. If you pay the demand, then there is no problem. But if that is there and they have gone for recovery and attachment, then there is an issue. Thanks a lot for giving me patient hearing. Thank you.
So thank you, Asim, for your quick and quite crisp elaboration of the points on house property.